Hello, everyone. My name is Jess Lee. I'm one of the co-founders of Empire Arts Collective, and this is our professional development series. And today we're talking about self-care. And I'm very excited. I'm here with Tresa Brown Edmunds, who is a self-care expert. Tresa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Tresa Edmunds, and I am part of a company called HavenTree, which is a self-care subscription box company. And of course, so in the developing of that, we had to become self-care experts. I'm also a writer and performer regularly with Empire Arts here in Sacramento.
Empire Arts Collective. Awesome. I'm so glad you're here. All right, so I have a few questions for you. What kinds of self-care do you think are specific to performing artists that might be a little different from non-performers?
So I was really sitting with this one because I was, the first thing we say about self-care is that self-care is self-determined. So whatever care you need qualifies as self-care. So it's very broad and very open, which can sometimes make it difficult to talk about because, you know, where do we begin or end? And we begin or end with what you need. That is it.
Right.
What you determine is what self-care looks like for you. So in one sense, it was like, well, everybody needs self-care in general. What's unique about performers? But what I really started to think about was how important our feelings are to us as performers. Being in touch with them, being able to express them, being able to feel them and be informed by them, regardless of what our performance, medium is. And so in this current moment, what we are all going through is a form of chronic trauma. Trauma, like colloquially, is often referred to as like too much too fast. So that makes a lot of sense if you're thinking of like an injury, like if you move your leg too far, too fast in the wrong direction, you will cause yourself physical trauma by breaking your leg. But this is true emotionally and mentally in all kinds of ways. Trauma, like self-care, is a very broad category. But this pandemic, this constant worry, this fear, the losses we are all incurring, both of our loved ones and our financials and in our socials and every aspect of our life, we are incurring significant losses. And so what this is creating for us is an environment of chronic trauma, which means that whatever your typical trauma response is, you're probably going to be seeing it pop up. So the 4 trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the one that people don't often know about because it hasn't been talked about as long as the others. But it's basically like just trying to do as little, like trying just to make things okay, despite what your own wishes are, like going along to get along is often how I describe it. And in some ways, this is anyway, don't sidetrack. Fawn is beautiful and destructive, just like all trauma responses, but it's worth knowing and paying attention to what your patterns are. So if you are somebody who tends to go to fight as your go-to trauma response, you might be having a lot of fights with the people you are sharing close quarters with. And that's important to know so that you can control it, so that you can be the boss of that response. Because having a fight response is a beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. And you don't need to feel shame over any of these responses. That's the big thing, because each one of these responses is for our protection. So it's really just about learning how you operate and being mindful of why you are behaving the way that you are so that you can control it a little bit more. So freezing, one of the big trauma responses, is something that people really default to during times of this kind of chronic stress. You might be drinking more, using drugs more, watching a lot more TV, just whatever behaviors you go to just kind of numb and make the feelings go away, Some of that is 100% okay because we're all trying to just get through this moment. Mm-hmm. And other times it can take to such an extreme that it creates new problems. So when we're under this kind of chronic stress, our body chemicals are flooded to create, like to give our body the fuel to respond to that trauma. So, you know, if you hear the stories about the mom who can lift the car off her baby in trouble, you know, that's all adrenaline, cortisol, and all of these stress hormones that are giving her the body the fuel to be able to perform this impressive task. Well, all of us who are experiencing stress to one degree or another, our bodies are giving us those same kind of chemicals, and we have to put them to use. Because if we don't, we could create some long-term health problems for ourselves. We could cause mental health issues. We could be exacerbating some choices that just aren't good for us, like how much we're drinking, or, you know, whatever it is, how much, literally any behavior. Like, there just becomes this tipping point where it's like, good, 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 good. Is that still good? I'm not sure. Bad, you know? And so whatever we're choosing to just survive and get through this moment and cope and manage our feelings, it's just helpful to be aware of how much we're doing it, and if we fall off that cliff into bad news. And so where the freeze response can become a real problem for performers, and even if it's not like the full-fledged trauma response, but just we're bored and numbing and we got no energy for anything else, and it's just a bad choice, maybe, even if it's not full-fledged trauma. No matter what, that numbing is going to create dissociation, where we learn to stop feeling our feelings. You know, if you numb yourself enough, those feelings will just stop. They'll just go away. And I have had this experience in my own life where I'd go to the doctor and I'd say, I'm hurting. And they'd ask me follow-up questions. What's your pain like? Where is it hurting? What, you know, and I literally couldn't answer the questions because I was that disconnected from my body. And you probably can all think of somebody in your life who's completely disconnected from their emotions. Those people are not rare, unfortunately. And we don't want to become one, especially when our feelings are our art for so many of us. We have to fight for those. And so you have to find this very careful balance, and it's going to be unique for every single person, of how much of these behaviors am I coping with, and how much of these behaviors am I numbing with. And coping is great, do what you got to do, God bless. But once it crosses into the numbing, then it's like, well, maybe this is creating a new problem for me, and it's time to find a different solution.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So a lot of performing artists right now are not able to perform in front of an audience, obviously, because of the quarantine. So do you have any suggestions for self-care activities that can maybe provide the same kind of stimulation?
I would say first and foremost, perform anyway. With a hairbrush and a mirror, if you're that desperate, I'm not above it, but this is a chance to learn some new technology. And new technology is new, it's a new medium. So there's new pluses with any new technology, you know? And so that can enrich your art by leaning into some of these challenges and finding creative solutions for them. Yeah. So I'd also say, so right now I'm doing this series, this karaoke concert, you know, where I'm basically just recording my practicing my singing and sharing it with my friends on Facebook. And the first time I did this, thank you. The first time I did this, I was fucking terrified, because it is so different to be looking directly into that little lens and singing earnestly and performing, and like just the way I would want to in front of a crowd. And that's just that one little eye looking at, you know? It was scary. And then just sharing it with the context change. It's just weird. It's weird and it's vulnerable. But you know what? That can also be a feature and not a bug. So as performers, we are always using our vulnerability. That is our feelings and our vulnerability. This is like what we use in our art, right? And so as we are all sheltered in our homes, we are literally like in our nests at this moment, as safe as we can physically be. And so this might be a time, depending on all the other variables in your life, this might be a time where you can take some more vulnerable risks in your art. because you're literally safe inside your house. You know,
Yeah.
I can publish my karaoke Corona videos and then just hide, and I don't have to know what people are responding to or not responding to.
Right.
I can just like put it out there and then go, okay, I did it, and I can be brave in that way. So I think it's just an interesting challenge to kind of spread those wings and see if you can come up with some challenges, like the parts of your performing that are difficult for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this can be a chance to really dig into some of that. You know, I always say, like, when you're triggered, triggers aren't necessarily something to always avoid. They can be extremely educational and really provide you a chance to like work through some shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so triggers are hitting us like right and left right now.
Right.
So this can be an opportunity, depending on all the other variables, the support you have in your life and all of the rest, but it could be an opportunity to really go internal. As you know, there's very few moments in our life where we get the silence, where we get the isolation, where we get, you know, the moments of being undisturbed to really go in and face ourselves.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, this is that moment. So if you could, if everything else in your life is stable enough that you could, this is a pretty, it's a pretty rich moment for that level of introspection.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good advice. I really like that. I'm gonna do that. So I feel like we haven't really touched on like a definition of self-care yet. I feel like at this point, probably most people know about it. So what are some of the biggest misunderstandings about self-care that you normally see?
So I'm going to try not to go on a big rant.
Okay.
Because even though I am a business owner and entrepreneur, I'm a terrible capitalist. And it really makes me angry how self-care has really been co-opted by capitalism. And so any company that's selling something will call it self-care. And like I said, self-care is self-determined. So it's so frustrating because it's like, well, are they wrong? I mean, somebody out there is going to love that and it's going to feed them. So is it not? But they just want your money. So I guess so mad.
Yeah.
Because self-care does not have to cost a dime. The most effective self-care does not cost anything. It can be anything from skincare to bath bombs to craft projects to the food that you're buying for yourself, to the clothes that you're picking, like anything, any place that you are choosing to spend your money, any place you're choosing to spend your time could technically qualify as self-care, because really it's just, what do you need? That's self-care. What are your own needs, and then meet them. And it seems so like, it simultaneously seems like the stupidest of common sense and completely revolutionary.
Yeah.
Because of like, duh, who doesn't need to take care of themselves? But at the same time, how many of us have been taught our whole lives that doing something that we are the sole focus of is selfish and wasteful? You know, especially women. I mean, for crying out loud, women or any gender difference whatsoever. Like, just, we are taught our whole lives to be of service, which is a beautiful thing, but not when it doesn't come coupled with being served at the same time.
Right.
Like, those two things have to exist in relation, or else otherwise it's not equal. It's manipulative.
Right.
And so if you don't have that relationship, which very few people do, because that's just not how our world is set up anymore, you have to do it for yourself. You have to. So it's everything from making sure you get sleep at night to giving yourself something fun to do, and in whatever form that looks like. But at the most basic level, which is where self-care started, it started with social workers and nurses and Black female activists. It's people who are in caretaking roles who have to think about sustainability. And so in that sense, self-care is the least selfish thing of all, because it only exists to perpetuate more service. Wow. And so in that framework, it really is like, you know, the oxygen mask example from the airplanes. You put your own mask on first so that you can be around to help the other people around you, you know?
Right.
And that is really at its core what self-care is. Before we even talked about self-care as something broad, it used to be literally when you go home from the doctor's office and they tell you what to do, how to change your dressings, how to take your meds. That's what self-care was at the beginning. It's following the instructions you get from your care providers by yourself.
Right.
And so it can be, you know, luxury and beautiful things, because those are good things to have in our world too. But at its foremost self, it's like, have you had water today? Did you get enough sleep? Have you been eating okay? You know, the basic needs that every human has have to be met. And for a lot of us, like, that means we have to kind of we have to develop our own parent in our head, you know, that puts us to bed when it's time for us to go to bed.
Yeah.
You know? Like, practicing good self-care is just like bossing yourself around a whole lot.
Oh, it's kind of nice to hear you say. That feels very validating. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if you're totally overwhelmed right now by how scary and chaotic the present / future is because of the pandemic, what do you feel is the number one thing that you can do to get through it?
Number one, with a bullet, stop reading the news. Stop it. Because right now, in this current moment, the news, no matter how savvy you are with your media criticism skills and how on top of it and how many sources you double, triple check, you know, you're not going to get an accurate picture, because things are changing so quickly. Right. There are, all sources of our media have specific, let's call them goals. With what they're choosing to publish and how and what slants they're, you know, whatever. And so you can't even super trust what's happening minute to minute. So I would say, like, give yourself half an hour, whatever, your morning toilet time, whatever. Give yourself some time to kind of get enough news so that you're responsible, so you know what's happening in the world, and so that you're, you know, checked in and you have the best of the information that's out there. And then stop it. Because no matter how much you just sit there and scroll, you're just going to launch yourself into a doom spiral. There's nothing you can do at home with your phone just taking in information. That is nothing you can do that way that is going to contribute anything. It's not going to make you feel better. It's not going to help anything. It's not going to make the virus go away. It's just amping up your anxiety. But we're all doing it because this is our brain saying, I have to gather the information. I have to be on top of this problem so I can create a solution. Our brains don't know. Our brains don't know.
Right.
Our brains think they know everything because they're brains, but our brains do not understand that viruses will not listen to them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So stop obsessing over the news.
Stop it. Yeah. Anything else? That is the number one thing. Even my social media, which I'm still using a lot, of course, because that's the only way we can see our people anymore.
Right.
I will still feel that the way that I feel my anxiety is I will feel it in my chest. And once I feel like it gets to here, then I'll just be like, get off. Yeah. I will literally be like, close all my apps. The anxiety is up to here. My friends' cute puppy pictures can wait. There's just too much on Twitter that I can't see right now. So it's just time to go. I'll email someone privately or I will make a private phone call to connect. But like, yeah. You have to be just so mindful of what media you are taking in, because that's the fuel you are giving your brain. It's like the food that we eat for our body. Media is just like that, but for our brains. And so, yeah, just screen your media, screen.
Yeah, love it. Very important. So a lot of the self-care stuff, we kind of already touched on this, but a lot of the self-care stuff that I see costs money. What are some examples of self-care activities that are free?
Okay, I gotcha. So like I mentioned, I'm a terrible capitalist. So all of the things that you can do that will make the biggest impact for your self-care are free, all of them. In order of importance, okay? The things that we need as humans, the things we need to thrive, no, I got that backwards. The things we need to survive are the things we need to thrive, okay? So if you are like in the doom spiral, the way you get yourself out is you take a deep breath. You take a drink of water. You get something good to eat. You take a nap. You take a shower. You go outside and get some sunlight. You make sure that you've been taking your meds as prescribed. You do some exercise. You go outside. You create some connection with someone you love. You make something. You create something. And hang on, let's put a pin in that because I want to spend some more time on that. But
yeah, got it.
Also, just spend time in reflection, journal, meditate, go in and figure out what you're feeling, what this is bringing up for you, because, before I get to my pin, let me just say on the reflection and the going in, we're all facing all of our problems caused by this pandemic, but what often happens once we're in that like heightened state is that all the other bullshit we've experienced in our life comes right on up front and center. And it's like, oh, are we having a bullshit party? Here we are. And everything you have been avoiding and trying to run away from is going to just pop up in unexpected ways because of the anxiety that you are just living with right now. And so maybe your job is okay and your house is safe and you're, like me, I'm very privileged in this pandemic moment. I'm doing pretty good, but I'm still getting a lot of old shit coming up because that's just what happens when you're in this chronic state of anxiety. And so it's a good chance if everything else is stable for you to just really dig into some old wounds and just figure out, oh, here's some more stuff I got to deal with because that's just human. It's like you got to do some car maintenance on yourself sometimes, And
right. Yeah,
moment.
Absolutely. A little tune up. So back to the pin thing about creating.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So one of the really powerful tools in self-care is this concept of mastery. And it's basically you try something until you become maybe not even good at it, but you accomplish something. And it's creating a situation where you get to feel good about yourself because you had a small success, or because this is really great in this moment where we're facing this huge existential threat as humans. Creating something concrete to prove I exist is incredibly powerful right now. This is why everybody's baking. Everybody's baking right now, partly because it's just yummy and it's always a good time for baking.
Yep.
But it is so powerful to say, I took bread, I took flour, I took water, behold, bread. Like it is a powerful moment as a human that really does go a long way to combating that existential dread of, I'm powerless. I can't do anything about this virus, but damn it, I can make bread.
Right. Yeah, and performing artists know this.
That is enough to make it through the day,
Yeah, absolutely. Great, okay. So last question before we kind of wrap up. A lot of people tell me that self-care isn't self-indulgent or selfish. What do you say to those people when they give you that?
Well, clearly I do not agree with that because the history alone disproves that. And but what I think the people who say that to you, that say that to me over and over and over again, I feel like there's two categories of people who feel that self-care is selfish. There's one category who, for their own reasons, is feeling their own guilt about their own self-care efforts. They have been taught that it's selfish to have needs. And so they are kind of projecting that onto you because it's their issue, but they're not there yet. And so they're just putting it on you.
Mm-hmm.
For those people, I would suggest compassion if you can find it. You know, I can't always, heaven knows, but if you can find compassion, I would recommend it, and some encouragement, and saying something like, you know, I used to feel that way too, but then I realized that this is just regular human maintenance, and that's it, you know. And try to like plant a seed and free them from that belief that it's selfish, because every one of us needs this.
Right.
But if it's not that person, like, so the other category, there's the people who are just dealing with their own guilt and baggage and then projecting. But then there's the other category of people who want people to believe that self-care is selfish because they benefit. Like companies trying to sell shit, or somebody who maybe doesn't want you to draw a boundary in your life because they're benefiting from your free labor, or from your emotional labor, or from whatever, you know, they don't want that boundary because it affects them. And so then they come on the attack against that boundary. And for those people, I have no compassion. For those people, I would just give them the middle finger, or laugh in their face, or whatever. But if you just want like a way out of the conversation, you can say something as simple as like self-care. Self-care means it's not about you or your opinion. So
Ooh, I like that. I like that. That's like t-shirt worthy. Perfect. Awesome. These are great tips. I love all of these. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had, or anything else you want to say as we wrap up?
I mean, I could literally talk about this for many, many days. And we have. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. I can't think of anything else I need to address. I've got, might be too dark for this. Let me recommend this book right here.
The Deepest Well by
Nadine Burke Harris. Oh, of course it's backwards, damn it. Okay, it's called The Deepest Well.
It's normal. It looks normal for me.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah. It's backwards for me. Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris. She's a medical doctor, family practice or pediatrician, I can't remember which, but she's also now the Surgeon General of California. So just really good medical data, but the book is very readable. It reads like a novel. Like, it's incredibly readable. And it's just got really, really good science about the part of the conversation about like the stress hormones and those toxic stress chemicals and some of the long-term consequences. So if you want to read more, go to that book.
Awesome. Cool, Tresa. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
You.
I feel very empowered to go do self-care things.
Go make some bread.
Huh?
Go bake some bread.
Yes, I'm gonna bake. That's all I'm gonna do. That's my only self-care. I'm just gonna bake bread. Yay. Well, thank you so much, Tresa, and thanks for watching this, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah, have a good day wherever you are.